A while back now, I made a video going over one of the most hotly debated elements of FNAF 2's story, the DCI. This is an incident theorized to have happened during FNAF 2 or just before that game. The DCI theory states that William Afton, while mimicking the original Missing Children incident, or MCI, once again lured 5 children into the back room of the new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. And just like last time, he killed 5 children, leading to their souls possessing the toy animatronics and for their bodies to be discovered by Fazbear Entertainment, and potentially even the police, forcing the restaurant to shut down and the toys to be scrapped. However, that didn't ever really sit right with me, especially because these supposed victims aren't ever really mentioned again. For all intents and purposes, the FNAF series almost always omits so much as a mention of whatever this incident was, and we've never gotten an honest and truthful accounting of what actually happened. Unlike in FNAF 1, there aren't any supernatural newspapers for us to use as objective fact about what happened here. Instead, we have these ghostly, vague mini-games and the phone guy's own word, a character clearly in somewhat of a higher position and who's motivated to lie to us. But today, I want to talk about the key ingredient to finally solving what really happened here, with FNAF 2. No, not that FNAF 2, this FNAF 2. So, let's get started. But before you do that, be sure to check out GamerSupps using my code below. Every purchase goes towards my potential future GamerSupps Shaker Cup, so if you want to support the channel and help me grow, that's the best way to do so. Try out their caffeinated flavors, their sleep support flavors, or their decaffeinated flavors. So long as it tastes good to you and gives you either the energy you need, the sleep support that you need, or the simple tastes that you need. Check it out in the link in the description or in the pinned comment. So let's get back into this. When I first tackled this topic, it was actually spurred on by the first trailer for this movie. I noticed that despite the setup clearly being based on FNAF 2, they made a point in saying,
"Some little girl got murdered here,"
rather than 5 children were killed here. It implied right off the bat that Charlie's death was the only one to take place here in the film. But despite this, based on previous interviews, we know that they are still trying to follow the plot of the second game. While I suggested this could mean Charlie died in 1987 in the games, I was never fully comfortable with that explanation, since it seemed kind of late for that to be the case. Still, something had to happen in 1987 to prompt the closing of the new and improved Freddy's, but we had no real idea outside of the DCI. Well, things change. What I'm going to propose may or may not satisfy you in the way it satisfies me, but it will fill in every single blank I came across in one way or the other. I believe that there were 5 people killed in 1987, but William Afton was not the one to do the killing. Now, before you click off this video, hear me out. Throughout the FNAF series, there are a ton of people who have died. William, Henry, Michael, Elizabeth, and hell, those are just some of the ones with names. But there are a lot of other, unnamed characters who have presumably been killed at one point or another, such as the technicians in Sister Location, or the victims of the all-staff meeting and security breach. But why then do we only ever see 6 victims tied to William, Charlotte, and the MCI kids? Well, the simple answer is that these are confirmed victims of his. These are kids he killed himself. Elizabeth isn't usually present among these 6 because her death was an accident. Same with the crying child. We only ever see victims William himself killed represented here. And if William did kill 5 more kids at the new and improved Freddy's, it stands to reason we'd see some acknowledgement of that in the future. But we haven't. But demuted, I hear you say. Phone guy mentioned someone using a spare yellow suit in the back, so obviously William killed someone. And yeah, I would probably agree most days of the week. But it's also worth considering that William doesn't always use the spring Bonnie suit just to lure kids around. In both the Silver Eyes and the first FNAF movie, he also uses the suit as a way to blend in among the haunted animatronics, sort of his disguise. In FNAF 2 especially, this makes a lot of sense as we learn really quickly that the toys are tied into a criminal database, and might recognize William if he wasn't in costume. And if William used the spring Bonnie suit specifically to avoid the toy's facial recognition sensors, then the full line phone guy says suddenly makes more sense.
Someone used one of the suits. We had a spare in the back, a yellow one. Someone used it. Now none of them are acting right.
William didn't put the suit on to lure in new kids, he put it on so he wouldn't be recognized by the toy animatronics while he tinkered with them. From there, William would enact his plan. But before we go too much further into what that plan was, let's talk about this guy, Freddy Carter's character from FNAF 2. Although there have been leaks about this character, I won't be calling him by that specific name, since it's not info we're intended to have just yet. and as far as we know could be an intentional lie spread by the leaker. So for this, we'll just call him the Violet Guy. Now, Violet Guy and Purple Guy share a lot of similarities, if you ask me, especially in a FNaF 2 story. Both primarily wear purple with a golden badge and have some strange connection to the building and its history that paints them as malicious characters. Now, obviously, Violet Guy here is not the movie universe's William, since we already met that guy. But with all these similarities, I think he is meant to be a stand-in for this story. Since FNaF 2 in the movie is not set in 1987, in order to follow the plot of the game, there would need to be a different William, let's call it. So let's assume here that Violet Guy and Purple Guy are following the same story, just at different points in time. Based on a plot summary from Cine21, a Korean site, these animatronics will roam at night armed with facial recognition and face the outside world. And I'm willing to bet that it's Violet Guy who starts it all based on the trailers we've seen. So now let's translate that to the game's timeline. William Afton was arrested and charged with the murder of 5 missing children. However, because of how he hid the bodies, he was never convicted. But this did mean that his face was now included in a criminal database. Henry then steps in and creates the new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, souping up the new animatronics with facial recognition software in case William ever tried coming back. And he did. However, if he wore the spring Bonnie suit conveniently left in the back, he was able to bypass that facial recognition entirely, allowing him to get close and tinker with them, setting them on a new path for destruction. I think while William was the night guard at this Freddy's, he set the animatronics loose, which then killed 5 people, potentially kids, but also potentially adults. It's possible that William set the animatronics to go after specific people by confusing their facial recognition, or maybe even just mess with it in a way where they see everyone as criminals. This would then explain why they go after Jeremy in the game and seemingly random strangers in the movie. The best part is that this means the toys could in fact be haunted by distinct spirits from the MCI, but they don't necessarily have to be. So we don't need to have that discussion here. But does this fit the FNaF timeline if we assume this is what William does? I think so. If you remember earlier, I said William is haunted by only 6 ghosts because he's only killed those 6 himself. He's not haunted by Elizabeth or the crying child because he wasn't directly responsible for either of those deaths. And by that I mean he didn't do them himself. He was definitely still responsible, but he didn't stab them to death or anything. So if William screwed with the toys and made them do the killing, then yes, the DCI can still happen and William wouldn't be haunted by the people killed by the toys. In fact, this could very well be his trial round before he does the same exact scheme later with the Funtime animatronics. Yes, the DCI happened, but no, William didn't kill anyone else himself. And there's evidence across a couple games that support this is what happened. In FNaF 2, one of Phone Guy's lines really bothered me the last time I looked into the DCI.
I can personally assure you that whatever is going on out there, however tragic it may be, has nothing to do with our establishment. It's just all rumor and speculation, people trying to make a buck, you know.
This to me implies that something outside of Freddy's happened, and is what led me to believe that he was talking about Charlotte Emily's death. But with the context that the toys may have just been wandering around jumping people and killing them, it makes a lot more sense. In fact, it would explain why there are so many rumors and why Freddy's would eventually be investigated by police. If these animatronics are going around in broad moonlight killing random people, then eventually someone's going to say, I saw Freddy do it. Let's briefly hop on over to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Sim. I'm sure you've heard of Midnight Motorist. You know, the very strange and unexplained video game within a video game. Well, if I'm right about William doing all of that, then we could be seeing the aftermath of a toy animatronic abducting a child to kill them. Something of note is that the footprints we see could be an easy match to Toy Freddy, Toy Bonnie, or Toy Chica. But okay, that's a lot. Have to take it in slowly. We still need to talk about Save Them. In my last video on this topic, I said that the death minigames are untrustworthy since they're from the perspectives of dead characters, and in the FNaF universe, ghosts are oftentimes very confused. That said, I may have been inhaling a small amount of copium in how I twisted this minigame. At its core, I do think it's more symbolic than anything. I doubt William left blood puddles and visible dead bodies just lying around, but these bodies are definitely here to tell us that someone died and it's connected to the new Freddy's. So, I'd like to amend my previous theory and basically say that while these are new bodies, I don't think they're the result of William recreating the MCI. I think that more likely, they're the result of William hacking the toy animatronics and getting them to do his dirty work. Whether the bodies were actually brought back to the pizzeria is hard for me to say necessarily, but personally, I think it is likely. So, there you have it. A DCI that isn't really a DCI but ties FNaF 2 into the main series beautifully in a way that makes sense and doesn't leave hangnails like the ghosts of an extra 5 kids. I do have one last thing to add before we end this video though. and that's that the toys ultimately were scrapped. You might ask why this is important, and I'll tell you. 1. It means William can't use them anymore, which may be his motivation to build the Funtime animatronics. And 2, it tells us that the toy animatronics were widely known at that point to be dangerous and faulty technology, since we learn about it in the newspaper. The first game's animatronics were destroyed by William and the Funtimes game entered, but this is the only game in the series where Fazbear willingly destroyed their own animatronics. Something I doubt they do unless they were a clear and present liability or threat. I guess they just wanted to stay out of the news. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this theory. If you did, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.